My name is John, and I'm 23 years old. I'm an artist, and I've always been drawn to old, abandoned places. One day, I was walking through the woods when I came across an old Victorian house. It was completely empty, and it looked like it had been abandoned for years. I was immediately intrigued by the house. It had a dark and mysterious atmosphere, and I couldn't help but wonder what stories it could tell. I decided to go inside. The house was dark and dusty, and the furniture was covered in cobwebs. I could hear the sound of my own footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. I started to feel a little bit scared, but I was also excited. I knew that I was about to discover something special. I explored the house for a while, and I soon found a room that was different from the others. This room was filled with paintings. The paintings were all of the same woman, and she was beautiful. She had long black hair, and her eyes were a deep blue. I was drawn to the paintings, and I stood there for a long time just staring at them. I felt a strange connection to the woman in the paintings, and I knew that she was important. Suddenly I heard a noise. It sounded like someone was crying. I turned around and I saw the woman from the painting standing in the doorway. She was crying, and her eyes were filled with sadness. "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Elizabeth," she said, "and I'm dead." I was so shocked that I didn't know what to say. "I was murdered," Elizabeth said. "My husband killed me." I didn't know what to say. I just stood there listening to her story. "I've been haunting this house ever since," Elizabeth said. "I can't move on until my killer is brought to justice." I promised Elizabeth that I would help her find her killer. I knew that it would be a dangerous task, but I couldn't just abandon her. I started by doing some research on Elizabeth's husband. I soon learned that he was a wealthy businessman with a dark past. He had been accused of murder before, but he had always managed to get away with it. I knew that I would need to be careful if I was going to bring Elizabeth's killer to justice. I started by following Elizabeth's husband, and I soon learned that he was planning a trip to the woods. I knew that this was my chance. I followed Elizabeth's husband to the woods, and I waited for him to make his move. When he was finally alone, I confronted him. I told him that I knew what he had done to Elizabeth, and I demanded that he confess. Elizabeth's husband tried to deny it, but I had the evidence. I had found the murder weapon, and I had eyewitnesses who had seen him kill Elizabeth. In the end, Elizabeth's husband was brought to justice. He was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Elizabeth was finally able to rest in peace. Her spirit had been lifted from the house, and it was no longer haunted. I'm glad that I was able to help Elizabeth find her killer. It was a dangerous task, but it was worth it in the end.